Scrum is a micromanagement framework. Einro. Einro? Hello, I'm Chris Athanas. I'm a KMP developer. My lighting is a little off. Tech support, they're going to close that thing. They got me a new ticket. So I'm going to listen to this AI and Nero. I don't know how you pronounce it. I think he's East German or Eastern European somewhere. Anyway, let's get into it.
I used to have a manager many years ago, and he was my CTO, and he had roughly 30 software developers on his team. Now, he would work in such a regard. He was a very technical CTO. He wasn't a software developer, but he came from a networking, IT administration background. So he was fairly technically savvy and could code a little bit if you forced him to, although he wasn't a software developer per se. He would work in such a way that he would describe a problem for us, and then typically that particular problem would be solved by one of his developers. And then he would babysit that developer until that task was done, and then he would move on to the next task, which probably resulted in him co-working with another guy. Now have in mind that there were 30 software developers here, and the guy could, for obvious reasons, only manage one of his developers at the time. I asked him if I could refactor and clean up the code, and I was told no. And his argument was that it's working. We don't want to take the chances.
Well, okay. I guess he just misunderstand the word refactor. The refactor means we're not changing the functionality. We're just gonna make it so this code is easier to read and maintain, update, change, understand, onboard. That's what a refactor for. It's not. We're not changing the functionality, sir. Like, oh, we got the idea of that. We're just trying to rearrange stuff here. But no, we got to march forward and keep that thing a mess. That contraption of stuff that was half-baked ideas that we didn't quite fix and didn't understand. It was left over, and we should. No, we're moving on. Not while it's fresh. Can't fix it while we know how things are everything's putting it out. We're going to make sure that all the error cases. No. We're not going to do that. We're moving on, sir.
And refactoring the code and improving the code quality might result in that something that previously used to work stops working. The end result was that out of those 30 software developers sitting in that room, at any one particular point in time, only one of them was working.
Oh, it's brutal. Oh my God. So this is why I always talk about adventure-driven development. Like, these companies have gotten into these habits, and they don't realize, because they're in charge, and it's been working great so far for the last 15 years in the ZERP. Everything, all this wasteful stuff, people are getting away with it because people are just throwing money at it. And then during the Rona, people throw even more money at it. Well, that's gone now. So all these practices, these businesses, they haven't changed. They haven't changed yet. That's why adventure-driven development is a way to directly attack these companies who have 1/30th of the power, and they're paying for 30 developers, and only one is working at a time. With KMP and the tool sets they're given, and sometimes you have to take time to relearn this stuff, you can actually directly attack them with a skeleton crew just to do proof of concept MVP, and then acquire users, and then after that you're off to the races. And if you already have been involved with these businesses and see what they're doing, you can directly attack them or something similar to it in a narrow niche, and not have to go through this. It's like, this is crazy. It's totally the norm.
Development department was working at somewhere around 5% of its actual capacity.
Yeah.
Because 29 software developers were non-stop deadly scared of doing anything that could in theory result in a bug going into production, while one software developer was working together with the manager in a pair programming almost like style of working, resulting in that only one of 30 software developers was actually working at any one particular point in time.
I believe them. I think it's just because I've heard these stories over and over and over and over and over, so much that it's the norm. And I have worked at a couple of these companies like this, like simply similar like this, not quite this bad, but I could see other people like, wow, this is really crazy. I was like, this seems like a little, like, even the companies I was at that I thought were like, they're kind of like pushing this managerial bureaucratic stuff. It hasn't been that bad for me, but I've heard these stories, and it's just like the normal thing, and everybody's like, yeah, get the Jira, punch a ticket, and it's this stuff, and don't make a move, otherwise the boss is mad. And He's worried about his job, etc.
Now, if you think a little bit about the things I just said now, and by the way, this particular company had lots of other issues. For instance, we had these key cards we had to toot every time we went in and out of the office. And so I used to go out on the veranda and get some fresh air every now and then. And when I did, I had to toot, take my card with me. And often we would go several software developers out on the veranda to get some fresh air and maybe have a cigarette or something like that. And we would stand outside on the veranda and discuss architectural ideas or code or problems we were experiencing at that particular day, etc., etc. But the key card would measure every time we left out to the veranda and stop measuring working hours. A month after I started, I got an email from HR.
See, those systems are designed for cogs in a machine, right? And and some people are totally okay with it. Totally okay with it. They are really legitimately, they really do think it's fine. Where is the three-headed guys? Hold on one second. All right, these guys. So most people, let's be real honest. Let's be real honest. Most people right here, they don't mind the clocking in and clocking out and all the doodly all the stuff. But if it bothers you, then you're probably gonna be interested in these in adventure driven development. So let's keep going with that. Here.
Saying that yesterday I was not completing a full workday, and if it happens again, they will fire me.
For going out and taking a break and talking about this stuff in the sunshine and fresh air. So they're designing it. These environments are designed for people who learned at Harvard and the MBA type people, these corporations, MBAs, where every business is the same and every employee is a cog that can be replaced. Boop, 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 boop. And because a lot of these companies are doing copycat stuff already, they don't really fully understand knowledge work or how actually programs or innovative services, competitive services are developed and created and maintained. They don't know how that happens. So they're copying somebody else. And all they've been told is that every business is the same and these developers are replaceable cogs that can be plugged into their machine. And they don't understand that these practices aren't designed. They are designed for factory workers, right? The clock in, the clock out, the time pad being, and you're not working, all that stuff because the factory floor is inside at the keyboard, not in the. So the manager doesn't realize that it's in their minds. It's in our minds. It's all this tacit stuff. It's not in the typey keyboard. That's why we have the mess we have, and that's why all these businesses are open for direct attack.
And the email said how many hours and minutes I had been working. I was supposed to be working 8 hours. I had worked 7 hours and 59 minutes.
Right.
And I need to emphasize there was no seconds resolution, so probably it wasn't even a complete minute. I was probably 25 seconds low.
Right.
But I was threatened to become fired. Now, if you go back to the process,
right. So that ensures that business will be out of business once the market realizes, oh, wait a second, we don't have to do all that baloney and still go to that and still go directly and get that customer. Or some of those customers, because I'm sure some of them are not happy with how long this is taking and would like to have it a little bit faster, cheaper, easier, funner, more down their niche, etc.
Description. Previously, I told you about my CTO. Then you will realize that I basically described Scrum.
Right.
Scrum is more or less like that. Scrum, you have a PM, which is like your manager or orchestrator or whatever. And he's got a product manager ahead of him, and then you have like the technical team lead, etc., etc. But basically in Scrum, you're assigned tasks, right? You have typically use Jira for backlog items, and then you pick 2-3 items per week, and you fix them, and you create 2-3 pull requests per week, and you push them, and that's how you work using Scrum. Then you have daily stand-ups meetings and Scrum velocity meetings, grooming sessions, sprint evaluation meetings, etc., etc. But basically, Scrum is organized micromanagement.
Yeah, it's for the manager. It's for Japanese. So it's designed for Japanese. It's Scrum for the Japanese in Japan for Japanese workers who are Japanese to create Japanese cars on Japanese assembly lines in Japan for Japanese motor companies in the Japanese culture. And how it got hijacked was Scrum was trying to be introduced right before Agile as a way to address the issues that were happening in the waterfall with how they were doing it before this, which was totally the wrong way to do it from the beginning when the guy that invented the waterfall term, because waterfall was the default way because that's how factories work, right? So people thought all the MBAs, all businesses are the same. There's no difference between any businesses except There is a difference. The knowledge work business is for it's all ideas that and conceptual models that just happen to have source code and computers running them, but it's more conceptual models about how to arrange the world with the current level of technology. And that's unheard. And that people are like, "What are you talking about, Chris?" It's like, yeah, what am I talking about?
In theory, though, which is what is so good about Scrum, though, is that you can parallelize your micromanagement, right? Because if you spend like 3 hours creating 15 tickets, in theory, you could imagine 15 software developers picking up those 15 tickets and working in parallel. It never works like that, though, for all practical concerns.
Right, it can't
And the
work like
reasons
that.
why is because 80% of your tickets needs to clarify issues for the software developer who is currently working on that particular ticket and orchestrate and collaborate with other software developers. This other software developer is typically working on his own problem in parallel. Now, when you ask the other guy a question and there is science on this, that other guy uses 40 minutes of productivity. It takes him 20 minutes to enter your cognitive framework and context wherever you are
Correct.
in your code.
Correct. So some of these things cannot be separated out. Some of these things cannot be made into tickets to be doled out to anybody on the team who wants to attack it. There may be a point in the project we can probably do that, but that's not how it always goes. That's not how the whole thing goes. And the fact that Scrum got bolted on to the Agile process is a mere just twist of fate. And if you really look at the Agile stuff, it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with Scrum. But the Scrum people, they're good salesmen. Their ship was about to die, and they had to make their shit relevant. So they twisted it and turned it and made it fit into this Agile thing, which was blowing up and taking away their steam. So they had to climb onto that thing. They climbed onto that rocket as it went up, and people have these things to associate it with now. So they saved the Scrum people's bacon, right? And because it also matched the objections that people, these managers had about Agile, about what it was 4 sentences. 4 sentences, and they're just like, we're gonna revolutionize software. Here's 4 sentences, everybody. Everybody's like, okay, yeah. Oh, so what am I supposed to do with that? And the Scrum people go, I got an answer for you.
Before it's capable of fully grasping and understanding whatever you're asking.
We got the books, we got the conferences, we got the revolutionary makeover weekend special conference. Bring your dev team in and get them going on the Scrum team.
Asking him off,
What a
and then it takes him
boost, man. And they just took over because what happened was that the Agile people just wanted this. They were so stuck in the and making decisions about all this stuff. We have to do. It's like instead of prescribing stuff, just say, look, man, we got to be flexible about this whole process, about how the whole thing, because we're knowledge workers, right? Yes, there's times where ideas have be fleshed out, and there's times to try stuff, and there's times when we have to actually build something, and maybe we can split that off somehow if we're careful about how we plan it. But even then, somebody has to be like the guy in charge and saying, "This is what we're building and how we're building it," and he's putting that. Somebody has to do that, and it has to be one person. And that guy can't be kicked out after the product ships. It doesn't gonna work like that. Okay, so all this tacit knowledge about your product, the technology you're working with to develop your thing, to put their service that you're actually providing, your customers, what the problems they are having that you're giving a solution to. That tacit knowledge, come on now, that's you can't just lay people off. Okay, we'll hire 27 developers and H1Bs and we'll just get rid of that guy. It's like you gotta stop doing that, guys. You have to stop doing that. Otherwise, those guys are gonna eventually figure out, like, because the technology's stabilizing now, because KMP is proof of that, where we can build with one person a bunch of different platforms and with one language and one set of UI, one UI toolkit, one like for 98% of the app, one set of libraries, one serialization, one backend, one language to do all that stuff.
20 minutes again to enter back into his own debugging context within his own code as he's done helping you out. Implying if you ask your colleague if he wants to have Coke or Fanta, you've in theory destroyed 40 minutes of productivity for that particular software developer simply because he needs to think.
That's also how these tools have been set up to create these applications in this way this is how it has to happen. So until we have a next leap, which Alan Kay was talking about, that's why I keep on bringing up Alan Kay all the time, because this is the way out, is we have to listen to Alan Kay.
Now, if you look at the average Scrum process, so we have stand-up meetings, okay, that's 25 minutes every day. We have grooming sessions, okay, that's like 60 minutes every 2 weeks. We have sprint evaluation meetings, Okay, that's typically 60 minutes every 2 weeks. We have, et cetera, et cetera. But ignoring all
it's a manager's paradise. That's why we got bolted on, because the agile process takes managers out and makes them have to have a role where they're actually contributing to the team. They're not just ticking off boxes. And we have a manager culture, right? We have a bureaucratized culture that started in the 30s and was in put into our government and put into our corporations as the way to have experts manage everything from the top down. And that's how business is run in America. And there's really no way around it. It's entrenched in our culture. It's entrenched in how we see the world. So the only way out is to venture driven. And just know that your time is going to be limited. If you get successful, if you actually hit it, your time is limited being a venture driven. Eventually, it's going to turn into this bureaucratized thing, and that's just how things are.
the meetings, let's look at what remains now. But we've now basically eliminated 20% of our productivity capacity simply by meetings. Everybody agrees upon that, I presume.
20%? I'd say 50%.
And
You know how many people just wait around all day and just go through these meetings and just kind of take notes on what the problem they're going to solve later on when they get home and don't have any fucking meetings? It's constant. You can't do software development and have meetings every 20 minutes. The managers love it, but they're not doing software development anymore, right? They're managing the software developers. Like, I've had a couple managers that were coders, and they were the best ones, the best people to work with. But a lot of them haven't been coders, and they love that meetings.
so let's look at the actual work that Scrum provides. Okay, people pick tickets, right? Now let's say I'm working for a company who's applying the Scrum process. Okay, I need to go and pick a ticket. I pick that ticket, assign it to me, I need to log into Jira. The entirety of that process alone is typically 2-3 minutes. And it's actually bothering me that I need to do that before I actually start producing code, because I've coded for such a long time. That alone by itself has become a nuance for me. But ignoring that fact, okay, so I take my ticket. Okay, my ticket might be an issue such as ensure the MT4 platform has been deducted the money before you bump the trader account in this particular database, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now we're talking about database, we're talking about the MT4 account. MT4 is typically integrated using C++. The primary code of the customer portal is typically C#. Then I have SQL, I have a database system I need to interact with, etc., etc. Then we have 4 different environments. We have development environments, my local development machine. We have the dev environment in Azure. We have the QA environment, maybe even 5 environments, because we got staging, which is like the last point before it enters production, and then we got production environment. So now I have 5 databases. Maybe my code works on my development machine because my development database happens to be in a state that ensures that particular code works with that particular database, simply because of the records and the data that database happens to be containing at that particular.
See, building these big, complicated systems on technology that was really not really designed from the bottom up for it. So this is why the computer revolution hasn't happened yet, because this stuff is unsustainable. And it should be automated away at some point. It's why we have these manually configured stuff is still kind of shocking. But again, trade secrets. These are ways to have competitive moats for people to have these highly bureaucratized businesses have some sort of defense against being openly attacked. But these defenses are getting lowered and lowered and lowered, and the water is draining out of their moats. So yeah, they should have a reason to panic, because the thing they thought was valuable is actually not that valuable. And the thing they thought was not valuable is the thing that's valuable, which is all this tacit knowledge and having people. Yes, you have to pay them a living wage. Living wage. It's like sad to talk about software developers being paid living wages. It's so sad. But this is how we are. And this is why adventure-driven development is probably the only way out for the next 6 or 7 years at least.
Point in time. I think my code is working. I push it to dev, comes to dev, and it breaks the build, and it takes like 2 hours to freaking create the build. Why? Because it's got to run through freaking QA Wolf, it's got to run through Sonar Cube, it's got to execute like 500 unit tests, it's got to like boot up Selenium framework and do integration tests and etc., etc. Basically, it's got to like burn the equivalent resources in regards to compute and electricity required to like boil 200 liters of water, right? Or something like that. So before I even know the code is broken, I've already started on my next ticket because I'm impatient. I don't want to sit and wait for 2 hours for this whole pipeline to give me feedback, right? So I start working on another ticket. So now I'm actually distracting myself. When I get feedback from my development and pipeline that my code actually broke something, I am now losing my current context, which I've been working at for maybe an hour and a half. And I need to drop that context and move over back to my...
Right. So this is the factory worker model of software development, and it's why these systems, these legacy systems are extremely difficult to maintain, update, understand, debug, monitor. So all this stuff is open for direct attack. If you have knowledge of how these things are done and ways around them, which is basically avoiding a lot of these traps and doing things differently and simpler and not using such complicated stuff, if possible, or just having small teams that like respect the time restraints required and also put limits on how much, how to design this stuff in the beginning. Once you pass the MVP phase, to how to design the stuff in the beginning to not have to do all this crazy stuff, to have an ability for developers to be to know that their code is going to work when it's deployed, and set your systems up as that as a priority because you spend all your time doing this stuff. That's where we spend the time. So let's how about prioritize this being not the hard thing. Let's keep going.
Original code, implying I'm losing control.
That's never been a priority anywhere I've worked. Maybe that is other places. And it's crazy that these financial institutions have this level of inefficiencies, but that's open for direct attack. This keyword.
Basically, because I need to move my context from my new problem to my old problem. Then I need to debug that particular code, find out why it doesn't work in the development environment, since it's working on locally on my own development machine.
But for factory workers going from machine to machine, that they just gotta pull a lever, okay, and they'll do the same thing over and over. It's like that. That would be. Wouldn't that be beautiful? They paid us a wage that you could that they expect how things work to actually be that way. And it's crazy that these managers, they get up into management and they think that the coding has changed. How they do this stuff and what we're working with. It was like 1990s technology, 1980s technology, and they just think that, oh no, it's changed. Like, no, we're still working with the same goddamn tools. They just are not fit for purpose for what you're asking for them to do. No, we got to listen to Alan Kay
before I can apply fix and fix my pull request. Finally, the pull request passes. Okay, so now we have a GitHub policy. 2 other software developers needs to manually approve every single pull request. That means that I need to assign this pull request to 2 other developers. Now these 2 developers needs to check my code, so maybe they come with feedback for me, yet again including me in my next task, which I've already started working on. Right? You see where I'm going with this?
Right.
You see, Scrum is basically a framework whose purpose, you might argue, is to destroy your ability to concentrate. Literally.
I mean, no, that's not really what the intention is. That is the result, of course, but that's not the intention. The intention is to give managers a feeling of the same control that they had with manufacturing processes, which is all their classes, all their professors, everything they learned at Harvard MBAs that you didn't go to because you're just a little technical person. We went to Harvard with the MBAs, so they haven't got to speed that there's a new thing called knowledge work, which is really odd to me that they haven't figured this out yet and told their people like, hey, so yeah, you're gonna have to change up. Maybe they don't know. I'm sure they know. Maybe this is trade secret stuff. Like they just don't let people run. If you're a hoi polloi, you're not gonna be part of their club, which is hard to believe. But like, so they're not trying to destroy the concentration. I think they just don't. They've been messaged from above that you don't have to worry about that, and that the people at the high levels they are so far removed, and every other part of the business works this way, except this part, this knowledge work part, where the people have to concentrate. Otherwise, you get bugs and you're open to direct competition because you're not gonna be able to keep up with this pace of this. This is unsustainable. And anyone that looks at it and thinks, oh no, that's fine, it's like, oh no, this is not fine.
And as a software developer, your ability to concentrate determines how valuable you are for your employer. Period.
Yeah. Right. Because you have to know how these machines work to make them work in the way that they are required to work, which, like, it's inevitable. It's going to have all these problems with how this stuff is set up and how it was built. It was ramshackled together like a damn Winston house in San Jose.
Implying the employers need to measure your productivity. Because of that, I presume some developers aren't really working; they're just pretending to be working.
Right, and they can't predict because you can't actually measure productivity with knowledge work. That's the thing. The only measure you have is if customers show up and they give you money. There's your measure. There's your KPI. You can't measure how fast the knowledge workers are trying to figure out what the users want because the users don't even know what they want until you give them something. Oh, damn it! So you actually have to make something. So how are you going to measure each little piece of that? Well, we've been doing that, and we figured out that just makes people mad and doesn't make it faster. In fact, it makes it slower. It's like, what are you supposed to do? Well, there's an alternative I call adventure-driven development, where you set the time ahead of time and then we don't talk about it anymore. We just start showing results and start moving forward. And at the end of that time period that we agreed on in the beginning, we don't talk about it anymore until the end. We go, okay, so how far did you get? Well, we didn't get very far, or we got this over here, or this we got done. We found out these things over here. And then at that point, the business can go, the managers can go, do we keep going or do we stop? And that's the true way it actually works. So we put all this covering on top of it. We have Scrum, we cut it up a little slice and argue about every little piece of it when we can make it faster. No, that's how you make factories faster. If you don't do that in a fucking factory, you are going to be cooked. Your factory will be closed. If you don't do that micromanagement, slice it up little pieces, 50 different people doing the pipeline to get up the flow going. If you don't do that, you're screwed. But you're making the same damn thing over time. You're optimizing with that process. So you have to do it that way. But knowledge work is not an optimization, it's an explore. Why do I have to explain that? I didn't go to Harvard. I barely finished college. We're exploring. Exploring is not optimizing. Once we found one, then we optimize. Why do I have to be the one that brings this up? Listen, go.
Identify those. Ends up resulting in that his best developers drops in productivity 90%, while his existing bad developers still stays at their existing level.
Right.
Why? Because we are honorable human beings, and even a super senior software developer such as me doesn't want to snitch on his colleague whom he happens to be working for.
True, we do that. So it's, as part of it's our own fault. But we're not in charge of these other people. We didn't hire them. We're not freaking paying their checks. It's not our fault. Like that, you guys don't want to listen to a different way of doing it because it's not. Well, the Harvard MBA. I was like, come on, you have to like switch out of this. I've worked at the places that do the exploratory. They never talked about it this way. We're trying to figure out what the consumer wants. We're trying to figure out what we don't know how long it's going to take. We got 6 months. We got 6 months in runway. So how much runway is left? We got 6 months. Fuck. We better freaking get this thing going. We want to keep this going of this creative exploratory space, and we can get projects going that allow that to happen. It's super fun. But the businesses don't see it that way, right? I was seeing it that way. Some of the people on my team were seeing it that way, but the businesses, a lot of them, I didn't realize at the time, were venture capital, so they want their money now. We got our money in, we want to get our money out, while you go give somebody else takes the bag and goes with it. So that's where we're like,
free riding this particular job, not providing anything of value whatsoever, either because he's incompetent or because he's lazy. So nobody wants to like snitch on that guy, right?
Right.
So instead of,
it's not our job anyway,
lifting up your bad developers up to the level of your good developers, what Scrum ensures is that your good developers drops down.
Absolutely. Optimizes for the worst case as opposed to trying to generate the best case. It's right. So when you're optimizing, you're optimizing for the worst case, right? To get all the variations out of the production cycle. But when you're exploring, you're trying to find the best case. You got to go up, and a lot of it's going to be darts way off the side of the board. You don't even know where the circle is. You're just throwing darts near it. So like a hazy mist. And every dart throws $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. Like, and so sometimes you get near it. Like, oh shit, gives you $500,000 back. Oh shit, let's get closer. Let's see if we can find it. And it's some more darts. And all of a sudden, $20 million. Boom, you hit it. It's like invisible, and you're like throwing in the dark, you're hearing echoes of it, and all of a sudden, dollars comes out.
You can take the single smartest software developer that exists on planet Earth, including Richard Stallman, Alan Kay, or Linus Torvalds, and put them into a Scrum project, and I guarantee you will see that they are delivering junk, garbage.
Yeah, of course. They have to optimize. Yeah, it's not that stuff.
If you have software developers who are seriously kick-ass smart, all you gotta do is to freaking unleash them. Tell them, do great shit, you have 3 weeks. Good luck.
Well, okay, if you see, there it is, right there. This guy, my thing is doing adventure driven. See, he knows. You got 3 weeks. Here's all your best guys. 3 weeks. Good luck.
That software developer is going to come back if he is brilliant, truly brilliant. He's going to show you something that is amazing. Scrum though. See,
that's how when I got it first into software development. That's how we did it. We were given a series. I'm honest. We were given all this amount of time. I said, we better come up with something because we only got 6 months left. And it was like, okay, and everyone knew that. And everyone was highly risk tolerant to be there and to try this thing. And some of us didn't have anything better like going on there. And these people, some of these people, like I took a lower salary or a substandard salary, which was fine for me, but to be allowed to be in this group of people. And it was super fun until it wasn't.
It's a framework for micromanagement.
Yeah, so Scrum's it is a framework for micromanagement, and they love it. So yeah, so adventure driven development. Go check out my playlist, and if you want to get started programming, I got a free course how to program from the ground up in my doodly doo below, and I'm out of here.